We're literally standing on the edge of a global precipice. Right now, the very systems that were built from the ashes of the last World War to keep us all safe, they're cracking. The stakes couldn't possibly be higher, and in today's Explainer, we're going to dive into exactly why. So, what happens when the rules of global peace actually begin to fracture? Look, this isn't just some theoretical debate for academics sitting in a classroom. The international laws, the treaties, the very diplomatic frameworks that literally keep the global order from collapsing, they are currently facing unprecedented, unbelievable stress. And the crucial takeaway here is this: peace, security, development, and human rights are, quote, under direct attack. Now, that chilling warning isn't coming from some random internet pundit. It comes straight from the very top levels of international diplomacy. It's pointing to a massive, urgent crisis in how the world actually manages conflict. Section 1. Multilateralism under threat. To understand how we even begin to fix this, we've got to look at where the battle lines are currently being drawn. Just recently, United Nations General Assembly President Annalena Baerbock met with India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. They got together in New Delhi with a highly urgent agenda, basically trying to figure out how to keep global cooperation alive while the conflict in West Asia rages on and geopolitical fragmentation threatens to just tear our international partnerships apart. The sheer gravity of Baerbock's assessment here, it absolutely cannot be overstated. She stated, "We're witnessing growing geopolitical tensions, increasing fragmentation, and pressure on the three pillars of the UN." You can literally feel the weight of those words. I mean, the UN is the only forum on Earth where all 193 countries are represented, and its core structural integrity is just buckling right now under all this pressure. Section 2. Contrasting visions for peace. Because the system is buckling, world leaders are throwing out drastically different ideas for how to handle global security moving forward. We're essentially looking at two fundamentally different philosophies of international relations right now. On one side, you have the traditional UN multilateral model, where all 193 countries, big or small, are represented equally at the table. But on the other side is the Board of Peace model, which was proposed by U.S. President Donald Trump. And that operates on a framework where nations would actually pay a joining fee to participate. Which forces a really provocative question, right? Must peace be guaranteed for everyone, or is security a system you pay to join? In response to that transactional framework, Baerbock emphasizes the multilateral perspective. She argues that a truly just peace simply cannot be achieved if nations have to literally pay a fee just to get a seat at the table. Section 3. The ultimate sacrifice. You know, enforcing global peace isn't just about politicians shaking hands in fancy conference rooms. There's a very real, incredibly heavy human cost to all of this. 300,000. I really want you to let that number sink in for a second. Since 1948, as a founding member of the UN, India alone has contributed over 300,000 troops to more than 53 United Nations peacekeeping missions. That's 300,000 individuals stepping right into the world's absolute most dangerous conflict zones. And then, tragically, there's this number. 184. More than 184 Indian peacekeepers have lost their lives. That is the ultimate sacrifice. They gave their lives far from home, not for conquest, not for glory, but for the incredibly fragile ideal of global stability. Because peacekeeping isn't just diplomacy, it is literally measured in human lives. Behind every single bureaucratic debate over UN structures, behind every theoretical argument about funding models, there are real people risking absolutely everything on the ground to protect the most vulnerable among us. Section 4. The push for UNSC reform. To properly honor those sacrifices, this system desperately has to function. And the UN is gearing up for its highly pivotal 80th anniversary session this September. So what's on the table? Stalled, long overdue reforms. There's a massive, massive push for India to finally gain a permanent seat on the Security Council, which is strongly advocated by the G4 grouping. That includes India and Germany. Plus, there are loud, totally necessary demands for the African Union to be permanently represented, making sure an entire continent isn't just locked out of the highest levels of global security decision-making. The urgency here is crystal clear. As Baerbock notes, while the UN is indispensable, it has to reform itself to be more efficient, more agile, and avoid duplication. I mean, when even the UN's strongest defenders are openly admitting that the institution has to drastically and rapidly evolve, you know it's a make-or-break moment if it hopes to survive the 21st century. Section 5. Who leads next? The clock is ticking, and we are on a historic timeline right now. Decades of participation, stretching all the way back to 1948, are culminating in this very moment. We've got the critical 80th anniversary session coming up to tackle these stalled reforms. And then there's a hard deadline. On December 31, 2026, the tenure of current Secretary General Antonio Guterres officially comes to an end. We are truly at a historic crossroads. So the big question is, who takes the helm in this era of crisis? Well, there are two highly prominent possibilities currently in the fray. During her talks, Barbach actually expressed hope that a woman will take over this monumental role. Two major names being discussed right now are Michelle Bachelet, the former president of Chile and UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, and Rebecca Grainspan, the Secretary General of UNCTAD. Whoever this next leader is, they're going to inherit a deeply fractured world and a severely struggling institution. I want to leave you with this final, striking thought. As the world stands on a knife's edge, can the next leader actually reform the UN before it's simply too late? Can an institution that was built from the ashes of the last World War evolve fast enough to prevent the next one? It's a massive question, and it affects every single one of us. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and definitely keep your eyes on how these monumental global shifts unfold.